I was going to make a vlog about this film, and believe me, I tried. But the more I did try, I failed to articulate the film, often diving into spoilers that I did not want to spoil. So, ultimately, I decided to write out a spoiler-free review to fully capture my thoughts on the movie. So, okay, here I go. So after I let the initial shock wear off, I have to say that The Wailing is a masterclass horror film, and it really speaks to films akin to The Witch that rely on complete immersion in the film's environment to fully convey the sense of dread and mystery. Written and directed by Na Hong Jin, the same man who brought us The Yellow Sea and The Chaser, both excellent films, managed to top his work by bringing us his most complex and compelling film to date. The plot follows a bumbling police officer as he investigates an illness that has some connection to a bizarre series of murders occurring throughout his village, supposedly caused by a Japanese man whom the townsfolk had their suspicions about being the cause of it. Once the cop's daughter comes down with the very same illness he's investigating, his parental instincts kick in and he'll do whatever it takes to stop it. The story is full of plenty of twists and turns, which keeps the viewer on their toes throughout the film, and it plays itself extremely smart. One of the movie's biggest strengths is the element of mystery present in the story. A lot of the key elements presented in the film, from nightmarish crime scenes to simple moments at a passing glance, really set up the world and environment of this film to one that felt real and believable. The cast and characters really do help out in that regard, as all the actors, including the child actress, fucking kill it, delivering chilling performances that get you sucked into the horror. The way the actors portray the characters' gradual suspicion to complete panic and terror is done in such a way that it felt like what real people would do in that situation. Towards the start of the film, the main character wakes up and is told by his family to eat something before he goes to work, and although he's reluctant to do so at first, he ultimately accepts the meal before heading out. I'm sure people know or have family members who are exactly like this. The kind that won't let you leave the house before an outing before stuffing you with food. This really sets the tone of how people will act in this film. Because of this though, a lot of the characters might get on people's nerves because of the terrible decisions they make within the first two acts of the film. But it must be said that each of their flaws makes them equally more human by the kinds of mistakes they make within the grand scheme of the narrative. One way I countered this upon first viewing was to view the situation through the eyes of the main character's parental instincts, and also from their point of view. Trying to read into the character's flaws from a meta-horror perspective really sells the film short of its chills and thrills, so I advise anyone who hasn't seen it yet to think so accordingly. The film plays up the emotional connection between the father and his daughter in a very sweet and endearing way, and one that allows the audience to come to understand them before the shit hits the fan. It is something I find a lot of modern horror films, save for a select few, don't really touch upon as often as they should, allowing the film to build up and establish the characters as people first and victims second. Too often I've seen vapid and stock characters being put through the woodwork in similar situations, and because I lack any investment in those stock characters, I don't care if they live or die at the end of it. Fortunately though, The Wailing doesn't fall into that category because of the very detailed characterizations, and it helps elevate the experience in the film as a whole. On the subject of modern horror films, this film does not have any jump scares in the entirety of the film's running time. In an age of American horror where it's almost the norm to be startled by loud noises, it's incredibly refreshing to see a film that did not have to rely on such a cheap and overused tactic. The film, instead of beating you over the head with startling sounds in excess, actually allows the viewer to absorb the surroundings and get immersed in the environment. As someone who's been conditioned to expect jump scares in modern horror films, the thought of an entire film bereft of one was a breath of fresh air and would have felt unnecessary amongst the anxiety-inducing third act. The film impressed me through and through, and it's rare for a new horror film to come around and legitimately make me feel uncomfortable while watching it, partly due to the familiar nature the setting has on me personally. The vast majority of this story is set in a very rural village, and a large portion of the plot is dealing with suspicion and doubt. A lot of these things I've experienced firsthand while visiting some of my relatives who live in rural and remote areas in villages akin to this one, which is why while the story is told through a village setting, it still feels like a closed space. The setting is so remote that if something terrible were to happen, in the time it would take for someone to call for help and by the time help would actually arrive, it would be too late. It's a scenario the director of this film plays with and truly gets you to feel the desperation one would feel like in the heat of the moment towards the film's climax. It is truly breathtaking. Another aspect of this film I thought was stunning was the cinematography. It is fucking on point. Every shot is crisp and full of detail, utilizing both the natural environment and set pieces to excellent effect. Some of these set pieces in particular are fucking grisly and gruesome. They're among some of the most twisted I've experienced since Seven, and I'm not joking. The camera lingers on these scenes a lot and allows you to absorb every bit of detail in the environment around it. It's kind of fucked up like that. As you might have caught on by now, I'm being extremely vague in my review, and I understand completely, but it's something you do not want to be spoiled on. To do so would undermine an excellent horror film's turn to shine amongst the greats of the genre. It is something to truly experience. Although, I'll clue you guys in that the film treads the supernatural, and fans of those kinds of films will be in for a treat just as much as the average moviegoer. If you're able to catch it in theaters while it's on its limited theatrical run, I wholeheartedly recommend watching this beast of a thriller. Otherwise, steer clear of spoilers until you can get a hold of this film on DVD or Blu-ray. You won't want to miss this film. It's a gem of a horror film to find in this day and age when it's both stylish and full of substance. I'm the Gorehound, and I'll see you in the next one.